joining us to put some perspective on the kind of skills base we're looking at on the continent, where we're seeing retrenchment and whether or not a brain drain is as big a phenomenon as it was in the past. Sandra Burmeister, who's CEO of Landelahni Recruitment Group, joins me at the desk this morning. Sandra, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. So
in tough economic times, you probably become a little bit more acutely aware of the globally competitive landscape and the pressure that's out there for resources, where when we're chatting off air, you highlighted that there's this unparalleled scarcity for skills and resources around the globe. Take us through the status of things.
Thanks, Alicia. Well, yes. I mean, there's 5 sort of key issues that are driving the skill shortages globally, and in particular on the continent. First of all, I mean, there hasn't been a fundamental investment in leadership development over a long period of time. We've been parachuting onto the African continent, expats in to run businesses for the last 50 years. Secondly, I mean, there isn't enough of the right kinds of graduates, and this is around the globe. So science, technology, engineering, those numbers are declining. And consequently, I mean, if you offset that against the infrastructure growth around the globe, and you offset that against the increase in technology, you're actually sitting with a mismatch of what's coming out of universities. Thirdly, of course, is the higher education quality, because not all institutions are putting out the right numbers and the right kinds of graduates. More graduates are studying offshore. It's a well-known fact that the US, Europe, and now even China are competing to attract graduates into their markets because, of course, they get to keep those. And then lastly, on the African continent in particular, political instability in the past has led to the exodus of many skilled individuals.
Yeah, especially where we're averaging 5% GDP growth, though, versus that of developed economies like you've highlighted. I mean, what should we be doing to take advantage of the position we're in economically? Because one would assume that we should be leveraging off the kind of growth that we're boasting.
Absolutely. I think there's no question that countries themselves need to send the messages, and we've seen examples in Kenya who've put in very, very attractive tax incentives for businesses to invest and be headquartered there. Ethiopia, who's driving formal diaspora network attraction programs. And then at a company level, really a multi-pronged strategy of buy, borrow and build, investing in the skills that we need. You know, Africa spends $5.6 billion US to recruit and pay 100,000 expats a year. Now, if we just took a portion of that and invested in our own leadership capabilities, you know, in 5 years' time, we would be self-sufficient, really.
Yep, but what are the challenges, though? I mean, why don't we have that foundation being set appropriately? Because when you're talking about education, it's one thing conferring degrees and, you know, having those qualifications on an academic basis. But where the gap seems to lie is in actually translating that into skills that are appropriate for the workforce out there.
Yeah, I think it's right. And, you know, it's an educational institution issue around the globe. You know, that we simply don't have enough science, technology and engineering graduates coming through. Partly, I suppose, because of entry-level, you know, maths, matriculants, maths and science, you know, fewer people, quality of education around the world. So it is declining. Having said that, you know, in South Africa, for example, I mean, we have a 12.5% graduation rate in the hard sciences. Globally, there's a 25% graduate. So if all we did was double our graduation rate, we would already have far more engineers, scientists and technologists coming into the market.
Okay, so that's something we can do once we do get to that status, and I know that it's going to be a long road ahead. How do we retain skills in the country? I mean, what is it about a country that actually makes people want to work in that country and that domain? What makes someone choose to work in a particular country?
Well, you know, I mean, it's the most fascinating thing with the African continent. We have thousands of applications coming through every month from Europeans who want to work on the continent. They think there's a vibrancy and an excitement and a growth here in the market which is unparalleled in Europe, for example. But we don't seem to, as Africans, recognize just how vibrant our market really is. So in effect, I mean, we need to appreciate it ourselves. Offshore opportunities are exciting for young graduates, and as South Africans we should be looking to work on the continent, for example. But over and above that, I think you know, people stay not for money. Money is really sort of 8 or 9 on the list of 10 things that keep people in organizations. It's quality of leadership first and foremost. And secondly, clear vision and drive and growth, which keep people in businesses.
Absolutely. Is there any trend of expatriates coming back to the continent, given all that's playing out in the global economy right now? Slowdown in economies forcing a lot of companies to downsize their workforces in those developed economies.
And unquestionably. We're also seeing, because of the investment on the continent, companies wanting to hire local. You know, we've had a big shift in the labour regulatory frameworks on the continent, and that reduces the number of expats that can come into the market. So the drive to look for nationals living abroad is huge. And that, coupled with the fact that the European economy is still quite depressed, we're definitely having an increase in people wanting to come back to the countries of their origin.